as I grow in this space of transformation, I mean, the first thing that has to transform is myself. I can't facilitate transformation for anybody unless I'm a transformed person. And we're always transforming. That's never going to stop, right?
Mhm.
Until we're gone. And I don't ever want it to stop, because I want to be here as long as I can. But, I believe we all have a timeline of our own. Time is an illusion.
And everything sort of falls under this one umbrella of time. I am acutely aware of time. How much time I have, how much time do I want to devote to things, and I am unapologetic about where I want to spend my time. Because I think, as Francesca said, I mean, we only have a short time on this rock. So, and now it's even clearer for me that I have to have the experiences that I want to have. I have to have my own joy. I have to do things that make me feel whole.
Hey, everyone. Let's start healing. I'm Adrianne Murchison, and welcome to episode 141 of the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. Well, this episode today, as all of them, is near and dear to my heart. I am joined by 3 guests, and gosh, this episode, well, let me say this. I am joined by 3 guests, and we're from different generations. 2 of us are from the same generation, and then my 2 other guests are from another generation, a younger generation. And this was inspired for me by the topic of ageism, by many of the wonderful podcasts that I watch and I listen to. And a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are hosted and produced by people much younger than me. And I'm really into what they're talking about. I relate to what they're talking about. And the rub for me is that older generations are sometimes left out of the conversation. Absolutely not always, but sometimes. And the thing that can get to me is that there can be a thought that the older that we get, the less engaged we might be in life. When I find quite the opposite is true among the people that I know. And I vent about this a lot with my nephew, who's been a guest on my podcast numerous times, John Russell Murchison, who I call Russell or Little Russell, but he is a grown man, 42-year-old man. Is he 42? He might be 41. My numbers are off at the moment, but he is a grown man with a family and living life. And I vent to him all the time. We talk all the time. So we are joined on the podcast by a close friend, Todd Duncan, who is a retired, long time journalist with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And he is recently retired. And I'm telling you, I joke with Todd all the time that he's like Benjamin Button. Since he retired, it's like he's getting younger. And we're also joined by Francisca Perez, who joined me on a recent podcast. And Francesca is, wow, she is a self-empowerment coach. And she'll share more. And I will share links with you from our previous conversation. But I thought that it would be great if the 4 of us could just talk about where we are in life, where we are at the ages that we're at, what is fulfilling to us at this point in our lives. And as I said, my motivation for wanting to talk about this is because ageism is something that's very much on my mind as I get older, because if it's one thing I do not like is to be put in a box. Oh my God, I do not like being put in a box at all. And I'm going to tell you, a couple of years ago at my job, I was sitting in a town hall, and one of the highest level managers was talking about where we are and where we're going forward. And it was very clear that at that time there was a focus on the much younger staff. And I thought, well, God, you are in this room with many professionals who have been with this company for decades. And what about the older staff? As in, I'm saying to myself, what about me? I have been with the company off and on for decades in one capacity or another. But I was certainly thinking, well, what about me? And what about what I have to offer? And what about this person and what they have to offer? And other than the people who are deemed stars in the company who might be older, what about the other people who have skills and talents? And I felt like that was really being ignored and looked over. And the reason that that was bothering me so much was because practically everybody I know who is in my age range, and I haven't told you how old I am, and not that I'm going to in this conversation, but everyone that I know in my age range has a side hustle, as in a side business. Everyone I know who is close to me in my age range is an entrepreneur. They have their profession and then they're an entrepreneur. They have a growing, thriving business that they are working on. So it's a different time. And so often I feel that as we get older, we can be put in a box. And I'm just not having that. I'm just not having that. And this conversation is just a start of interactive discussion about how we really do have more in common than we think. We have more in common than we think. And this world is going to get better by all of us contributing, being a part of the shift and the change, not by one group of people or one age range. I mean, we grow as a collective when all of us are engaged. So that is what's up. I am looking forward to you hearing this conversation. It is just the beginning. It is about healing. It is about growing. And I should say that there is a few new podcasts from me that are coming your way. And one of them is called I Just Don't Understand. And here on Let's Start Healing is a little introduction to that. What I've been sharing with you is a little introduction to I just don't understand, because I have this thing around ageism, because um, I don't think that we should be um, disregarded when we get to a certain point in life. And the flip side of that, I mentioned in a book that I wrote called Colliding on the Road to Happiness. And it's a book about relationships. And my thought was, I wrote in this book, it's a book about relationships between Black men and women, and it includes the Black family and just different issues that can arise between Black men and women, which can arise in any relationship. But one of the things that I mention is when we see a baby and we love this infant so much, no matter what color they are, right? No matter what background, we see this innocent infant, newborn, and we think how precious and all the possibilities. and we care about this newborn from a pure place. And I think, at what point do we stop caring about this newborn? We put conditions on what we care about and where we choose to love someone as a human being. And then, if we deem them to be worthy of our love and consideration as a human being as they get older, at what point do we start to disregard them because then they become a senior citizen when they need us more than ever, right? So, at what point do we stop caring about each other? We put such qualifications on this, and I believe that as humans, we should just see each other with humanity always, in always, and always. So, more to come, but for now, with this conversation with these three guests, let's meet them. Let's get started, and let's start healing. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, what's up?
Thank you for being here. And you know what? One thing that I didn't say, and I gave Francisca a little bit of background, is that in addition to Let's Start Healing, I am going to do another podcast called I Just Don't Understand. And so this will fall under both of those umbrellas, because I'll ask you a few spiritual questions as well. Okay. So, Todd, you look so serious.
I'm not. I'm ready to go.
No, I'm saying Todd. Todd looks really serious.
I'm listening. Listening intently.
So I was saying offline that I've become a little preoccupied with conversations around what people are doing with their lives right now. And a lot of people having these conversations are in their 40s and their 50s. And I relate to what anybody talks about. I don't care what age they are. And sometimes, though, I'll feel left out, because people will think after you get out of your 50s, you get into your 60s, then you're old. No, and so I do vent with you a lot about this, Russell, don't I?
Right.
So I want to start out with you. So we're different. Me and Todd are in the same age group, and I don't know how old you are, Francisca, but I'm thinking that you and Russell may be.
I'm 47 and proud of it.
Go on.
That's good. That's good. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I thought you were probably like late 30s.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yep.
76, baby.
I hear you. So, Francesca, what would you say, where are you right now in your life right now?
In my life right now, I am embarking on a pivot career-wise, and I am looking forward to just learning more, living more, and owning my time. And the older I get, I feel like it gets better, actually, because I stand on my business because I know who I am, and I know who I am more and more every day. So
Yeah.
that gives me conviction that my message matters. So that's really where I'm at with it. So,
And share what your pivot is into what career, from what career?
yeah. So right now I am a senior tax accountant, and I have been in taxes for the last, over 20 years now. And it has yielded, you're always going to learn, you're always going to grow, but there comes a point where your soul calls for more. And that more, what that looks like for me now is pivoting into transformational facilitation and being a speaker in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is in the realm of coaching also, right?
Yes. And so, and I'm learning through the process because I have been the eternal employee for the last, however many years. I started working when I was 16 years old. And so, to call myself a coach, I always feel like, I've always, up to this point in my life, even into my 40s, I've always felt like there's a need for external validation. Your boss is going to tell you just how good you are and what promotion you deserve, or, your value essentially. And for me, the realization that I've come to, and I've always known this, but work and life tend to bleed together. Work and home life bleed together a lot, and sometimes it's hard to kind of separate the two, in a sense of, well, my boss is going to determine if I'm doing a good enough job, if I'm good enough, if I'm worthy enough for this promotion or this raise and this like that. And I come to realize that, you're worthy because you exist, and it's inherent within you. We are eternal within, and we are eternal without. So that has caused me to really feel like I've really outgrown being in a corporate setting, because I have this passion of, just spreading the message that we really only have right now. And we've got to optimize joy in the moment. And really, our mission here as human beings, these spiritual essences having this human experience, is just to help each other along the journey to optimize joy in the moment that is right now. Because many of us are busy looking to the future and being afraid of what that looks like, having no clue of what that looks like, and then also living in the past that has impacted us right now. So that's become a passion of mine, and my dream is essentially to travel the world speaking to people, exploring different cultures. And I mean, I myself am multicultural, and I love just the fact that we are on this floating, living, thriving planet, and there's so much to offer, and yet it is just so vast and so infinite. But we're stuck in a 9 to 5 job. Like, am I gonna get a raise? That's 2 cents more. Out of here. So that's yeah.
Exactly. Beautiful, beautiful. And Todd,
Yes, ma'am.
you retired, and you just tell me about life. What is life like? You're such a different person.
Well, I am. I am. Life is great. And I sort of think, my age sort of hitting, certain milestones there. And the retirement thing is like the best thing that ever happened to me, because I have such a great perspective on where I am in life right now. And everything sort of falls under this one umbrella of time. I am acutely aware of time. How much time I have, how much time do I want to devote to things, and I am unapologetic about where I want to spend my time. Because I think, as Francesca said, I mean, we only have a short time on this rock. So, and now it's even clearer for me that I have to have the experiences that I want to have. I have to have my own joy. I have to do things that make me feel whole. And I'm doing it 100% unapologetically, and just loving every second of it.
Yeah. Will you share the profession you retired from, and why you decided to retire instead of saying, well, maybe I'll, shift right now and go into another direction of employment. But you
No,
decided, I'm gonna
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
take a break.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wish I had known I was going to feel like this now, because I would have done it before. Um, so I spent more than 40 years as a journalist. I was a senior editor at the Atlanta Journal Constitution for, God, 30 years. I've been doing that for a very, very long time. And I sort of laughed when Francesca said, it seems like she's a lifetime employee. That's the way I felt as well. Like, you're working for this corporate entity. And even though journalism is a different mission, I really believed in the search for the truth. And I was a true believer in that. And I think I lived that. It's time to stop. It was just time to do something else. And that clock was ticking in my head. I could hear it. As I spoke to colleagues, and we all have experienced this, and I know, Adrian, we've talked about this too. I mean, you get to a certain age, and your friends and colleagues, they're not with us anymore, and you always think, well, am I doing everything I need to do before it's time to go? And I just knew that I had to make the change
Ye-
to live, to
Right,
live.
right.
So I could have stayed on. I could have kept doing what I was doing. I loved what I was doing, but I love this even more. So
That's good.
That is beautiful. And Russ, I know you have a different mindset than the average person. So share, your way of life and where you are right now. And you have a new child in the family.
Yes. So it's a little different for me. My career is my career, and my personal life is always going to be my personal life. I've always separated the two, and I thought it was just because of like apathy, just like not caring from a professional standpoint. Um, it's not that I don't care about my job. It's not that I don't take pride in what I do, but a job is a job to me, and my life is my life to me. And so I've never really conflicted the two. And I don't come home and talk about work a lot. I'm not saying I never talk about work, and I'm not saying that I never get stressed about it, but it's never been a thing for me. Um, I'm 42, so and I recently had a daughter this past February. And so
Congratulations.
thank you.
That's
And
awesome.
so that's an interesting life change for me because my stepdaughter's 15, my son is 7, and now I have a 5-month old. She's 5 months old today. And she was born the day after my dad's birthday, but my dad passed away in 2022 and my mom passed away in 2021. So when it comes to like a perspective of like life and just how I go about things, life is always like my personal life is always like very present to me, and my work life is it's not on the back burner. It's just something I do. It's kind of mechanical in nature. It's not something that I put a lot of emotion into, you know. If I
Mhm.
make a mistake, maybe I could put something into that, but usually if I made a mistake, it's somebody else's fault. You know what I mean? And I don't say that from an arrogant standpoint, but it's just kind of how I look at it, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, that's
Do you
pretty much
do you,
it.
do you think that's generational? Because both you and Francesca have both said that, that splitting of the job and not blurring that line. And
Mhm.
just when I grew up, I mean, there was no line. I mean, it was your work, your career, and you achieve this, and you got to get ahead. You got to go do this. You got to do that. So I'm just wondering, is that thought process for both of you? Is it generational or?
Uh, Speaking for myself, it can be. I feel like it's that way. I know a lot of people that grew up watching our parents' generation, which is kind of like the borderline of your generation, but more so into the like 67 to 70 range of baby boomers. We saw that every day. You know what I mean? And so our parents brought a lot of their work life home and those stresses home. And it's kind of something that I grew up knowing I couldn't do. Like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? And so when you see your parents go through that realization or come to the realization that even you came into, Todd, like, then I benefit from that as an observer. I'm just a natural observer. I benefit from that. It's like, oh, okay, well, if I'm gonna get to this point, then I might as well start there now. That's
Mhm.
speaking for me, Francesca. I
Mhm.
don't know how it is for you.
Well, honestly, my perspective on that is a little bit different.
Mhm.
I'm kind of the mindset that the way that you grew up and kind of, I mean, in a sense, but it's more so your own past experiences, like self-worth and what you feel, how you feel about yourself, whether or not, because for me, to be honest with you, when I was a child, I wanted to sing, dance, act, do all of the things raw. And when somebody criticized or said, what, because adults don't always realize that this is coming from the heart when you're a child and
Yep.
you're
Huh?
singing, and then someone's
Mhm.
like, oh, you're a little off key, and then you don't sing again, or someone's like, you're a little off beat, and then you don't dance again. And then you try to explore, where does my worth lie? And then it's the message, well, you have a college education, because that's that I was in that era of latchkey kids, and that when you get a college degree and then you get the house and the car and the marriage and all of that stuff. And none of that worked out for me the way I thought it was going to. And a degree was so important for me to have. And then but the degree that I had no idea. Like, who knows that they want to be, an accountant at 7. So when
Right.
I go into accounting and then I'm in the job and I'm like, well, now I feel stuck. And so then you start to lose that sense of freedom. So I don't think it's necessarily because my grandmother raised me, and she was, for all intents and purposes, a domestic goddess. She kept the household together. My grandfather went to work, and so it was kind of like I really didn't necessarily see that part of us. You need to, be in that work. It was more of a think that you're gonna reach this lovely American dream, and it just didn't, because I'm not living true to my passion, and I never really have.
Hmm.
So for me, that's, I have evidence of that now 20 years later. If that
Okay.
makes
Right.
But did you guys get to like everybody is very firm in how your mindset is? And did you get to this recently or has it like in the last few years? Todd, I know it had to be recent for you. But for me, something flipped for me on my birthday last year. Like the week before my birthday, something flipped, a switch flipped, and I just became more emboldened and empowered, and I don't know why. I guess, something in my spirit was just ready. But how has it been for you guys?
Yeah, I don't think it was one thing. I think I intellectually knew all this stuff. It just so happened that the timing was just right. It was just right with my soul that
Mm,
it was ready for this big change. So it wasn't that I didn't know. I mean, I kind of always knew. Like I said, if I had known I was going to feel this great, I would have done it probably 10 years before now, you know? Um, but there wasn't like a switch that went off. It just happened to be a confluence of everything hitting at once. There was the opportunity, and I was ready to do it.
yeah, yeah. What do you guys do to maintain balance? That has become a big thing for me, and I've really committed over the last couple of weeks that I have to have balance in my life regardless of what that looks like. Like it looks like different things for me. And you mentioned, Francesca, before we came online, you were talking about all we have is right now. And that's what I've been trying to focus on is, being present and turning to the things that bring me peace or might raise me from a stressful place to a higher level. I mean, it could be music, it could be a spiritual teacher I turn on, it could be going running, but I know that this has to be a priority for me right now, for me to be healthy and well.
Well, I think health and wellness kind of go hand in hand with many varying systems within our body, right? And I recently heard a quote, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is one of my favorite of all time, and he said that your nervous system is your greatest physician. And so for me, what I've tried to do, because I can definitely lose control of my thoughts, and I'm 10 steps ahead of myself, and then I'm attaching emotions to events that haven't even happened yet, or I'm having an emotional response to something that happened way in the past, and I'm unconscious of it even. So what I try to do is just get control over my emotional response to everything. And I am very vigilant about my thoughts. I monitor my thoughts like I am monitoring the minutes on the clock, and minute by minute. Sometimes your mood may change, and you're not even in touch with why. And so I just try to kind of make sure that I'm mindful of that. And honestly, like you said, like a switch flipped for you at a time period. For me, this has been a progression because there's always like been this knowing within me that there's so much more to life than the way we live it, right? I mean, you go to work, and what are you at work for? And as a tax accountant, you can work 15-hour days and sometimes lose time, sleep, not sleep, and work straight through 2 days. I've done it. And then you realize, like, what is that all for? Because time is the most precious commodity that we've got. No money can replace time. And so, I realized that over time, it's like, what am I striving for exactly? And the more I get in touch with that thought, rather, and I mean, I've been there. I've been in the ditch of thoughts where like I am stuck here. And excuse me, as I grow in this space of transformation, I mean, the first thing that has to transform is myself. I can't facilitate transformation for anybody unless I'm a transformed person. And we're always transforming. That's never going to stop, right?
Mhm.
Until we're gone. And I don't ever want it to stop, because I want to be here as long as I can. But, I believe we all have a timeline of our own. Time is an illusion. We made that up. And culturally, it's like, people will write you off at a certain so they get to that age and realize I was wrong because you want to get to that age. Aging is a blessing. And so that's always kind of what I've tried to just keep drilling in my mind is that your timeline is your own. Somebody who achieves a great success at 25 may not have lived past 30. Or, somebody who achieves success at 55 will live to be 105.
Right.
So there's no rhyme or reason. It's just changing your mindset. And I think the shift is the mindset. But the most important thing about a mindset shift is removing the obstacles that you have to be able to shift that in the first place. So
Yeah. And that's what I think, Russell, that kind of gets to me sometimes. Like I feel like people devalue uh people as they get older.
Mhm.
And yeah, people, you can accomplish things at any age. You can accomplish things, in your 60s or 70s. And then some people, they just, they don't want to do anything at those ages. They just want to stop. But that's not what I want. But and then some people will say they might refer to somebody, in their 60s as ancient. So it drives me bananas.
until they get to 60, and then they're like, "Oh, wait, moving out of here." I feel like it's all an
Yeah,
experience, and what we tag onto it is
right.
labeling, and it's. I mean, I've gotten the greatest wisdom from people who were way older than they have so much value. And my best friend was my cousin, who she lived to be 109 years old. At 35, I would talk to her, and she was in
Mhm.
the 90s then, and she would tell me, "Girl, if you're gonna live to be my age, you'll spend a lot of years worrying about stuff that doesn't matter." And that's wisdom.
Right,
Yep.
right, right, right. So Russell, share how you are, because like I said, you're a different breed. You don't stress over a lot of stuff, or if you do stress, you put it in its proper perspective.
Yeah, I think that's just how I don't know. I'm a water sign. I'm a Pisces. So I know Todd's a Virgo. I know you're a Taurus.
I'm a
Francesca.
yes, I'm on fire all the time.
Okay, so you're a
Sagittarius, did you
Sagittarius.
say you cut out?
Okay.
Sagittarius?
That is it.
Okay. So like for me, they try to characterize my sign as like a dreamer or, kind of aloof. I'm not necessarily that, but I do have those qualities. I'm more stable, but being a water sign, everything just has to be free, right? Like I don't like too much structure, but I don't like too little structure. I like a good balance of everything in life. You know what I mean? Not necessarily good and bad. I don't ever care for like drama. I don't care for like bad things to happen to me. But like I do take the tough times as learning lessons for, the good times or just life in general to make me stronger. I think one of the biggest qualities I like about people in general that I meet or anybody that I admire is just how much of a survivor they are. We're all survivors. But I don't internalize much and I don't worry about things that I can't control. And I've always been that way. And I don't know if it's because, my parents got divorced early and I had to kind of figure things out. And I was the only child until I was 12, but I didn't live with my brother. So I had to sit in like a lot of my own thoughts and I had to figure a lot of stuff out for myself. If I go outside and I'm outside, it's just me. I ain't got no big brother, no big sister. I don't have anybody to help me figure out what I need to figure out. So if I got to fight, I got to fight. If I got to talk it out, I got to talk it out. I don't really run because I'm not really a runner, but for all
Wait,
intents
you
and
mean run from a situations?
yeah, just
Or
run
run
from situations.
Yeah.
I either talk it out or I fight it out. You know what I mean? Verbally or physically. That's just how I am as a person because I don't like anything being held over my head. I don't like threats. I don't like a threat in my life. And so that kind of helps me not worry about stuff. Like if I had to go to a job every day and worry about I'm gonna lose my job, like I quit. I find another job before I go to work every day wondering if I got a job. We're just not doing that. You're not gonna hold this job over my head. And we're all black people of color, and I don't mean this in any kind of funny way, but I always think it's odd how like in my field, Caucasian people may speak about a job so frivolously. Like they may say, "Oh, don't do that. You'll get fired. You'll get fired for this, fired for that." It's like I don't even talk like that. Like I don't like telling people that they may get fired if they don't do something. I don't like talking about the detrimental part of work in a day-to-day situation because I feel like that's people's livelihoods and that can add a whole bunch of stress to somebody that they don't necessarily need in that moment, you know? And so I
Yeah.
don't carry stuff like that with me.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I am. I know I'm blabbing,
Mm-mm.
but
That was great because I'm with you on that. And again, as the eternal employee, I feel like it's so disempowering to the magnificent human that you are. You're
Mhm.
really I don't care what you make. You're really getting paid pennies for your time because
Exactly.
genius ideas that we have but the time to implement them becomes strained because we're in a 9 to 5 or and
Yep.
that's it. If you're fortunate enough to have chosen something that you truly love,
Yep.
right? I don't know anybody who truly loves tax. I don't know not one.
I understand. At best, you love numbers.
Nope.
Not even.
I,
There's got to be somebody who loves being a tax accountant. There's got to
I haven't met him yet.
Yeah, that's something that I tell Adrian all the time is that once we've determined a number that I get paid, then I determine how much work you're gonna get for that amount of money. I don't do the extra working myself to death. Like you pay me this is what you deserve. And if we have like a difference of opinion, we can work that out. But I'm a good worker. I'm a hard worker, but I don't overwork myself. It's not necessary.
That's so good. I've been the opposite of that.
right.
I
That's
think to the bone, and that goes to needing recognition. So, are they going to notice me? Are they going to notice how hard I work? Are they going to compensate me because I'm so good? They-
Hmm.
You,
now,
Yeah.
you can't
that,
hear you, Todd. Did you say
okay. I was gonna say that's a really good mindset to have, and I'm glad you have it. I mean, so young because we are a little older than you, uh, uh, because we do these things. I mean, I was the exact opposite. I mean, I worked extremely long hours for a very long time, and not just for recognition, but I internalized that I had to work harder to be great at what
Hmm.
I'm doing, and I really didn't, but I internalized that. So the fact that you recognize that at your age that's fantastic.
You know what I noticed? I don't know. Like, so I went to school for like technology initially,
Mhm.
like electronics engineering, computer engineering. I was part of the computer boom. So it was kind of like everything was like computers, IT, blah, 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 blah. And when you get out in the field, like after you get your degree, the first thing they tell you is you can't get all of these cool jobs because you need experience. And so I always thought, like, how can I get experience if I've never done it before? So you're telling me I just have to wait my turn. But then you start to see different people excel and level up. And then you realize it's about relationships and it's about how you make people feel at work, not necessarily how good you are at your job. I'm good at making people feel good at work. I can make you feel good at work. I can't necessarily tell you that I'm outwork anybody. I feel like I do, but I also am self-aware enough to know when somebody is a better worker than me. But people that I know that really have their nose down and they're really trying to grind, they don't necessarily know how to massage things at times. It takes them time, just in my demographic. So that's the one thing that I kind of like took from it is like, okay, I have to use my personality and networking and making people around me feel like I'm dependable and knowing that they can count on me and that I'm trustworthy to help me propel. It's not how much I work or how hard I work or how good I work. Because you see people and they're great. They're great workers, but they have bad attitudes. So they get picked over or they may seem a little off. They may be an introvert. And so people feel like, oh, well, I can't talk to so and so, even though I'm the person that talks to so and so. I'm the good morning everyday person. I'm the how you doing? Like I'm the what did you do this weekend person. And if you ask me, I'll tell you. If you don't ask me, I'm still gonna ask you because it's work.
yeah. Todd, have you noticed anything different about yourself
Oh,
since you've retired and now what are you discovering?
absolutely. I used to internalize a lot of criticism.
You went silent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I used to internalize a lot of criticism,
Mhm.
and I no longer do that.
That's good.
I no longer do that because getting the distance away from not being in the newsroom, not being in that corporate setting, I realized that the issues weren't me; they were the people who were projecting those onto me. And because I tend to be more sensitive than most, and I would carry that, and now I don't carry that anymore.
Yeah.
That's great.
It wasn't my issue; it was their issue.
How rested do you feel?
I feel great. I feel great. Really. I mean,
That's
I
great.
and we talk about the physical thing. My blood pressure had been creeping up, not to a dangerous level, not to a dangerous level, but it'd been creeping up, and that's something very new for me. And so 3 weeks after my retirement, I had to take a physical for an insurance program, and, the nurse comes back and she goes, wow, your blood pressure is great. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She gave me the numbers. I'm like, can you do that again? And so she did it a second time, and it was even lower.
That's
And then,
great.
okay, at the end of the exam, we got to do it one more time. And at the end of the exam, we did it, and it was back to levels before I took on some of these high-powered roles.
That's great, man.
And so
So,
I realized this thing was killing me. It was killing me for what? For what?
yeah.
Nothing important.
Mm-mm.
Nothing
Definitely.
important. Nothing what I find important. I mean, others, for them, having the headline, having the byline, that may be it for them.
Hmm.
Not for me. The experiences are what I'm talking about. Having my relationships with my family, my friends. I mean, I am 100% engaged in doing that.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. I'm just playing. I'm just kidding.
I'm not.
but Todd is one of 4 people that I know that retired this year,
Mhm.
and everybody was much younger than retirement age.
That's
And
good.
one of my friends decided in December that she was going to retire March 1st.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great. Because it's so good to hear you say that, Todd, because, even with my dad, like as soon as he retired, not too long after that, he passed away a few
Right,
months after.
right,
And I hear that story so many times.
right.
But my father-in-law, he's he wouldn't mind, but he turned 70, and he's been retired for a while now. I'll say over 10 years. And the first thing he said he was going to do when he retired was pick up some other jobs. He's kind of like I won't call him a handyman. He's just a jack of all trades, but really good at what he does. And so he always stays moving, cutting his grass, doing things, working in the garden, and he's so youthful. And so it's something that as a black man, I pay attention to how other black men handle life, you know what I mean, and handle stresses. And I take that in and I say, all right, that's good. So it's good to know that actually, worked for you in that way. I'm happy
Absolutely.
for you.
Yeah, and I get to deal with my passions, the things that I love to do now,
Yeah,
and I get to take care of my physical thing. I get to run. I haven't been running, and I'm still running, getting ready for Thursday,
that's right.
big road race. So, you know, it's just been great, and I also have time to think. I have time to actually think,
Yeah,
and you don't realize you don't have that time until you do.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's one of my things is that when I go out of town, for example, like I went to Austin for like a retreat weekend 2 weekends ago, and when I'm able to have that space, I feel and see the creativity that opens up with me. Things just come up, just naturally in me, thoughts, creative thoughts
Hmm.
versus, when I'm in a routine of the day-to-day minutia of
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Nah, I mean, I get it. I
Yeah.
think I think it's a lot of that's related to like stress too. Like when people are able to relax their mind and just decompress, that's
Yeah.
when you think about a lot of good things and positive things too. And
Yeah.
that also gets your like creative flow going.
So as we wind down, I'm glad that you're having this conversation with me because it's been percolating, and I know there's going to be more that's going to come up for me. But how would you describe your God given natural gift? What would you say that is? Some people call that a superpower. What would you say is your natural gift? And why are you looking at me like that, Russ?
I'm just wondering who's gonna go first.
I'm gonna let you go first, Francesca.
What? Oh,
No.
okay. Yeah, thank God.
Are you sure?
Yes, Francesca, go first.
Mm.
Uh, well, for me, I definitely have the gift of gab. I have been called the chatterbox since kindergarten up until today. And I feel like, and I've always said it, if I could just get paid to speak. And yet I went into the absolute opposite career path, which is very heads down. You collaborate, but only if there's a mistake. And, otherwise you just like keep your nose to the grind. And um, I honestly believe that, you don't want to die with your music in you and you want to get that out. I want to just sing to the top of my lungs all the time, at all times. because the truth of the matter is, like I said before, we've only got right now. We don't have the future. We don't know what the future holds. The past is gone, and we get to think a new thought, do a new thing. And if we use each other, utilize the connections that we have, the community that we have, and pour into one another by first pouring into ourselves, because it has to flow out of us. We can't serve from scarcity. So that to me is my greatest passion. And if I get to really do this thing, I wouldn't even look to be retiring anytime soon, because I'll be doing everything I love. Like, they say, when you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And that's the next step for me. So gift a gab for sure.
Well, I love that. And you have me actually thinking about my late mother and grandmother, because both of them late in life were very creative. Both of them were actresses in community theater. My grandmother was a director for a long time, and an actress for a long time, but just they did that. My grandmother lived to 92. My mother into her late 70s was acting and directing. And so that's what I know. And that's why this thing, I just got stuff around all of this.
Beautiful thing is that we can do it. You can really do
Yeah,
anything.
you
It's just your
can.
mind will stop you from a lot of stuff to protect you, but your heart knows what it wants, and follow your heart always. That's
Absolutely. Absolutely. What about you, Todd? Do you know, is it clear what your God-given superpower is?
Yeah, I think we're given more than one gift. So I just don't think it's just one single thing. Obviously, I think I have the gift of being able to craft the written word and touch people. I think I can do that. But having not done that for a minute, I do think I have a gift to relate to people one on one and help them through situations. And I'm not talking about necessarily being a counselor, but actually being a good listener. And obviously being a journalist and being able to ask the right questions to help people sort through their stuff. And I've been doing that a lot lately, in trying to repair relationships with family, with friends. And I'm not talking about relationships that may have frayed because something bad happened. Just, life takes people in different paths, and trying to make those connections. And I think I've been able to do that really well. And I think that's a gift from the universe.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Russell.
How was mine?
Yeah. I already know.
I don't have any superpowers. I think a gift I would say that I have is observation.
Mhm.
I like to take the time to observe things over time. It's not necessarily like I just get in a room and I just study. You know what I mean? But the more that I'm around people, the more that I'm around situations, the more that I'm around environments, I try to take in everything I can so that I have the path of least resistance. I don't want to make my life difficult in any way, shape, or form. So therefore, if I'm in an environment, how can I make this environment less stressful? If I'm talking to a person, how can I connect with this person more? How can I get to a level where when we communicate, we understand each other? I'm going to understand you at least. So that's pretty much what it is for me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
As a father, I just study my kids all the time and, just try to be a parent that can connect to them in different points in life. Not like a parent that's a warden, but a parent that's like a confidant. Like you can come to me in life and get real life,
Wow.
age appropriate life, but still real life. You know what I mean? I keep it real with my kids. You know what I'm saying? My son's 7. People would be surprised at the type of stuff that we talk about, but we talk about it on a level where I don't try to make it salacious, or I don't try to make it uh fire and brimstone, like if you look at it from a church perspective. You know what I mean? I just try to make it as real as I possibly can, so that he doesn't have to like spend time figuring that out for himself. He can try to be better than me in life by already having a lot of the tools that I, have or possess.
Yeah. And you see personalities
Yes.
regardless of age.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
You're really good at that. I like to say that I see people like, it used to be the line from the movie, I see dead people. I see alive people. Like I see people.
Right.
I see the purity of who a person is. And that may not be how they show up in the world, but I see that in them. And then my other gift is knowing is intuition, but I don't always listen to it. I listen. I don't always listen. I listen to it maybe 75% of the time, but that 25%, I can kick myself because it'll be, I knew that. And it is a blessing, to have that. I think we all have intuition, but uh, we may not tap into it that much.
How does your intuition show up for you?
Wow. It shows up with a knowing a lot of times.
Okay.
But sometimes if it's straight from God, I've noticed that it's just a do this, you
As
know,
a voice or as a thought or
as
in like
a as a
in your
as a
spirit?
as a thought, like in my spirit, like
Mhm.
do this. Sometimes it might be a knowing,
Mhm.
and there's thoughts around that in my mind,
Mhm.
but other times it's get up and do that now.
Yeah.
Call this person now.
Mhm.
Things
And
like
sort of given everything we're going through, like in this country, and how do you see the good in some of these folks?
I that relates to a question I wanted to ask, but I know that my spirituality teaches me that everybody is a loving child of God, no matter how I feel about them as a human being.
Mhm.
So that's how I attempt to see the good in people. I know that it's there, but I might not like them as a person. My ego might not like them, but my higher self knows who they really are.
That's a gift. I ain't got it.
Yeah, I was about to say I struggle with that.
You are alone. You are not alone. But I will say that when it comes to people, once I get a feeling, I'll give it a minute. But 99.999% of the time, they will show me who they are.
Yeah.
That's a gift indeed, because you'll know, right? Because of who you are, right?
Mhm.
Come into your space that you resonate the most with, they are mirroring you, right?
Mhm.
But when you can sense something about someone else, that's something within you that you need to work through, probably, that you're identifying that within that person. It's like, that's not my cup of tea right there. And then that's an invitation for you to look within. That's how
Yeah.
I see it. Like, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it is it always the ability to look at yourself? Because one of the great things about growing up in New York City is that I have that ability for really instant assessments, because you had to have that because it was a life or death situation sometimes. And 99.9% of the time I am correct. And the person does show themselves to me, and I was right. And I'm not necessarily sure it's because I have that, or I was just able to recognize that.
Well, I'm from New York City too, and you go
Right.
in New York City, you got to have a certain survival skill. So
Right.
I may also come from just, that's where you grew up. That was the environment. You go there now, and it's like, don't stand too close to the train track. You can't trust nobody. You always side eye somebody. You never know who's gonna, you know what I mean. So you're always vigilant at all times. So that puts your senses on a heightened state of alert at all times. I mean, I was in New York 10 years ago. I've been in Orlando for, and I was there when 9/11 happened and things like that. And then
Mhm.
you're forced, and then they're saying, if you see something, say something. And how are you going to see and stop a 747? You're not. So it's always that kind of just the challenge to tap into what you think you know, because you might need to know it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Right. Because it translates not just to social thing, and in business too. I could be in a meeting,
Yes.
and in 2 minutes I've assessed, what so and so's motivation is, what they're really trying to get at, what the double talk, the double speak, what that really means. And I don't think that had anything to do with me or my shortcomings. It was actually a great tool to have.
Yep.
Doesn't help you so much sometimes in the corporate setting, but it's a great tool to have.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So without asking you to go into, deep political stuff, how does the way of the world right now land with how you're living life and how you're approaching life? Like, is there a conflict? I mean, because these are different times. And because how many people do I know? I know so many people who are like, they're leaving the country, or they've already left the country. So it makes no difference to you, Russell. I mean, I'm not saying that in any cynical way.
No, I mean, when people say they're leaving the country, I mean that's a nice thought. I mean,
So, I mean,
if
many
you
have left
can,
the country.
if you can, and you want to, you should. Um, uh, Todd and Francesca said they grew up in New York City. I grew up in Virginia, but I like to say that I'm hood. I grew up in the hood, and those are the same type of sensibilities that you have. A heightened awareness, a understanding, a way to read people and read situations based upon your environment. Kind of applies the same way in this country, and it applies that way to me with politics. Um, I think a lot of times you see certain things, and if you look at them at face value, it seems like it's two opposing sides. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just wonder, why do the powers that be let things happen the way that they're happening? Like when I watch that debate, why am I watching these two people? Forget what your criticism is of either one of them. Why am I watching these specific people run to lead our country? Because if we're going to be honest, neither one of them would be my first choice, and neither one of them display the power to control this country and lead us in the right direction. Just my personal opinion. And then when you look at the people backing them up, they're silent. One of them, we don't even know who his running mate's going to be. The other running, our vice president, respectfully, I rarely see her. And when I do see her, I see her in things that don't really pertain to politics as much to me. The things that they're pushing to the forefront. That's not to say she's not doing anything. I'm just talking about the messaging behind what we see. So when I see stuff like that, more than wanting to leave the country or more than having a fear, I kind of look at what's going on and how these things will affect me. And it's a double-edged sword for me, you know, because on one hand, we build ships where I work. We build aircraft carriers, subs. So if a Republican candidate gets in office, to be quite frankly, it's not going to hurt me at all. You know what I mean? And as far as my pockets, but it does have a tone and a tonality with this particular leader that doesn't allow you to even cut through the fat of listening to what the Republican Party has to say. And with the Democratic Party, to me, it's tough because it's hard to support somebody or a mentality or sensibility that I don't identify with. I don't identify with being as passive as they are sometimes, and the way that they let the other party talk to them or control things. Never in my life did I think I'd be seeing us argue about Roe v. Wade. You know what I mean? That was something in high school that they told you was one of the topics you can't write a paper on because everybody writes a paper on Roe v. Wade or euthanasia. And then 20 years later, 22, 25 years later, I'm seeing us talk about it, you know? And then the people that are leading the conversation aren't even the people that are affected by it. If I'm gonna hear anybody out, I'd rather hear women talk about this and discuss it. I have no real place in that matter at this point. I support women. I support what they want, but I don't have a place as to tell you what you should do. You know what I mean? In that regard. So it's just a little bit of it. Hope it wasn't too racy. But
No, no.
I don't really dig politics at all because I think that we're watching the puppet master at play. And so we're looking at representation of a system that really is hidden and out of our control. And I think the real and present issue, as far as I would like to focus my attention, is community. And I think that when, my favorite image is always the shark being eaten by all of the smaller fish in the shape of a bigger shark.
Mhm.
And what that represents to me is if we all get on the same page, which that's not going to be an easy feat, but you got to align with the folks that you align with. You have to give back. You have to pour into and you as an individual, and then as your family, and then it echoes out from there. But community is the most important. Our vote is our vote, right? We're going to agree and we're going to disagree. We're going to look at people who are voting for a certain party and say, well, why? And then you can come up with all of the theories as to what you think it is. Like you're, of a certain demographic, you're of a certain income level, and you're going to vote for the other guy who's the opposite of that. So that must mean, and I don't have that energy, thought, space, or anything that I want to tag onto my judgment onto why they're voting. I'm probably correct, but at the same time, not my space to judge. I'm not, but I got to work on myself first. Yeah. So that's where I stand on politics. I'm what is independent. If I like what you're saying, I'm gonna say it, but I also know the detriment of where we are at this point in time. So
yeah. So Todd, how do you keep yourself from getting pulled in, or do you get pulled in?
I mean, I'm still, paying attention as a news junkie. I mean, I still read 2 or 3 newspapers a day, and watch TV. So I'm still aware of what's going on. I do think this is we can talk a long time about this. I do think we're at the culmination of many different things happening in this country. One is the dumbing down of America, the lack of history being taught, the lack of basic civics being taught in schools, this rush to a white Christian society that is just keeping us ill-informed. I think most Americans are incredibly misinformed, and that just mirrors it's aligned with the decline in newspapers, community newspapers. People don't know what's going on. I think technology has played a great role in the misinformation. Then you can get caught in your echo chamber. I mean, we have one cable news network that is completely devoted to the end of democracy, and it has tremendous ratings, and it relies on fear. And the other two major cable news outlets don't give you any context for the broadcast. They rebroadcast the same 3 stories all day, and that's all you get. So I think you're seeing that. I also think you're seeing the last gasp of white supremacy in this country. They know the numbers. They know what's happening. They know this is going to be a very brown country, and this is the last gasp. They will not win, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I'm kind of hard on the media. And it's just so refreshing understanding that you have what I consider to be a realistic, approach to it. You know what I mean?
There was a recent study that showed any community where the local newspaper died or went out of business, their economy suffered, their educational numbers dropped, their test scores dropped. Okay, and the viability of that city or town or county, whatever it was, took a dip. Information is king, and that's why we've been tricked into thinking we have all these choices, and when we don't.
Right.
And you have to hold journalists accountable too. You have to gotta hold us accountable too, because I still see headlines and things, and I read stories and I go, oh God, should I call that editor? They shouldn't have done that, but we still have to hold them accountable. But without information, I mean, we're lost. We're just lost.
Definitely.
Wow. Well, okay.
Very well said.
To round this out on something a little more uplifting, it asks you to just say quickly one word or sentence about what you might be grateful for today. I'm grateful for the peace, blessings, and balance that I have had today. Starting from this morning, there's a spiritual teacher I listen to named Muji, and I didn't intentionally put him on, and I listened to him to like 2 30-minute recordings as I was moving around, taking the dog out, getting dressed, and I was so zen by the time I started work. I was just like this. And even though I got stressed later on about the minutia of the day, I still had like a baseline of this, peace and balance.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nervous system. Your
Yeah.
position.
Yes. So what would you say, Francesca?
I am grateful to have the ability to think a new thought and do a new thing, because nothing ever has to stay as it is. You're never stuck. Stuck is not real. And so the ability to have the wherewithal, emotionally, mental capacity, all of that, they
Yeah.
can do a new thing is great freedom.
I love that. I love it. Todd, you said something earlier that I just loved. You said, "It is right with my soul." That really
Yes.
struck me. I love that. What are you grateful for today?
I think I'm grateful for everything that I pray for in the morning, that God has given me every single thing I need.
Mhm. Thank you. Russell?
No, it's interesting. I'm grateful for life, but I'm grateful for my life. I can only be me. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, there's certain things that happen that I see on a daily basis where I'm just happy that I'm me and I'm in the place that I'm in. Um, Unfortunately, the route that I take to work yesterday, an hour after I went over, we have bridge tunnels in Virginia. So it's like you go over a bridge and then you go under a tunnel and then you come out, but you're on the interstate. It's kind of weird. And it's called the Monitor Merrimack Bridge Tunnel. So I crossed that bridge tunnel maybe around 5:50 or whatever. 7 o'clock that morning, a man went over the bridge, and unfortunately, his car was submerged under the water. And that happened at 7 o'clock, and they didn't pull the car out until like 3 in the morning. On my way to work, I've been in an accident. It totaled my car. Like they hit me when I was stopped on the bridge. And so just thinking about things like that, like sometimes you just take regular life for granted, like your everyday path. You're just like, oh my God, I don't feel like doing this. Oh my God, I'm running late. And usually when I'm driving, sometimes when I'm in traffic or sometimes when I'm running late, I'm like, man, maybe God's preventing me from an accident. And so it's just revelations like that that just make me grateful for being who I am, where I am in the space that I am, and healthy and, thriving.
Yeah.
That was a lot, but that's it.
No, I really appreciate the fruitful conversation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
I appreciate the conversation too. Everybody brought a lot to the table. I was interested in hearing everything you all said. I thought it was very insightful, and I'm gonna take that with me in life too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
So I
sure.
appreciate you.
Yes, agree. Thank you so much for having me here. This is an amazing space. I love great minds and great conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Please share Let's Start Healing with at least one person you know. And until next time, let's start healing.